That is like invisible ink. It's like invisible ink. Oh, good. That works for me. Nobody reads it anyway, so I wasted ink.
All right. All right, time is now 5:30. We'll call the first meeting of February for Lawrence County Council to order. We will begin with the invocation by Councilman Rankin, followed by the pledge of allegiance. All those who are able, please rise.
Let us pray. Lord God, we come tonight, and I just thank you for the beautiful day that we had outside, and I pray specifically for our great country. Please guide our leaders at the federal, state, and local level, and give us wisdom to know how to proceed in the following days. I pray for our meeting tonight. May we make decisions that will be beneficial to the people of Lawrence County. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. A few announcements before we get started. One, I believe Councilman, please remember to speak into your mic for the public and those who are hard of hearing amongst us. I do want to make a few announcements. Median Switchgear in Gray Court had their ribbon cutting today. We did that fee load a while back. They announced 41 new jobs and $8 million in capital investment. The company is actually a Japanese company. They've been around for 124 years, but they're planning Gray Court as their first manufacturing facility in the U.S. So that's a pretty big deal to have them here in Lawrence County. We did that ribbon cutting earlier today, and they already have their first product ready to ship already. The next one, we did a ribbon cutting at 4 o'clock at our new transfer station out on Landfill Road. We are all excited about that. I know Dale and Chris and his guys are real excited. We move about 19 tons of trash a week back and forth. So having that asset here will save time and wear and tear on some of our trucks, being able to have it in one central location before we ship it to the Twin Chimneys. Mr. Coleman, I think I saw him here with us. He was recognized as one of the top 50 economic developers in North America a couple of weeks ago. That's a pretty big feat for anybody, but good recognition nationwide for Lawrence County, so we're thankful for that. And also two celebratory things. Saturday, Mr. Jeff Carroll celebrated a birthday. And I believe today, Miss Betty Ann Walsh is celebrating a birthday. So we are happy birthday to both of you, and we're glad to have you with us tonight. All right, we will move straight into our agenda. First thing I have up is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Motion by Mr. Rankin, second by Mr. McDaniel. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion approved, 7-0. Next, I have approval of the minutes from January 26th. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the minutes of our January 26th meeting with any correction, if there be any.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Anderson,
I'll second that motion.
second by Mr. Carroll. Are there any additions or deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Vote passes 7-0. Now we will move into reports to council. Up first is Mr. Joey Avery with a report update on COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I will be very brief. As always, I give you the weekly handout of all the numbers throughout the county, and you can see that we do have a downward trend taking place, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But the sad part about this is in your right-hand column in the red, you will see that there's also 9 deaths that have taken place in Lawrence County. That has been reported in the last 14 days. So that's always a sad part of this COVID pandemic, is that we're losing our family members, community members, friends, and relatives. So if you look throughout the packet there, you'll see that, and I'm just going to hit the high points here. The Lawrence area now in the 14-day period is 219 cases. That is down from 336. Clinton, 123 cases in a 14-day period, down from 206. Gray Court, 89, down from 128. And we have a downward trend because our community folks are doing a great job of wearing a mask, social distance, sanitizing their hands. Don't rub your face with your hands and your eyes as far as that goes. But because the trend is going down, we as community leaders must keep our foot on the pedal and keep encouraging our citizens to continue that trend. This pandemic is going to be with us for a while. There's no end in sight at this point in time because the vaccination process is in process and it's working great. But the problem is there's not enough vaccine to put a shot in every arm. So the demand is there, the supply is work in progress is the best way I can describe that across Lawrence County, the state of South Carolina, and the nation. So it's going to be a while longer before we can start having any relief from the pandemic. Let's talk about a little bit about our operations tempo throughout the county. We are in better shape today than we were 2 weeks ago. We still have some people that are out quarantined. All departments are at 100% as far as work hours goes, except for the library. The library still have some people out, and they are still reduced hours. They're closed at 5, and they're doing a curbside pickup. So if we have somebody that comes in that wants full service, the folks at the library will send them to Clinton to do whatever they need to do. Talking to Renita, this process will probably stay in place to the 1st of March, okay? And that's the only department that we have that has reduced hours. Everybody else is normal business. Our PPE is holding steady. Our EMS folks are still running very hard out there. We're getting supplies in as we order them, but there has been some slowdown on certain items out there, but we're doing extremely well. So I'd like to encourage everybody to still do your part. Wear a mask, wash your hands, don't touch your face and eyes, avoid close contact with people who are sick. If you are sick, stay at home. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue. Clean and disinfect your work area. That's a big thing that we're doing with our county employees. They're doing a great job. Building and grounds is really keeping the individuals with the supplies that they need in those offices. And that's a good mitigation process that they've been a part of. Refrain from any large groups. And that's pretty much it. That's how we can do our part to mitigate this pandemic, this virus, and keep the numbers going downward. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Does anybody from council have any questions?
Mr. Avery, I just want to ask, this isn't directly related to COVID, but I have had some constituents reach out to me with reports from DHEC on the cases of the flu in South Carolina. There seem to be some abnormalities with the flu compared to years past. And I've taken a look at the records as well. Last week, we had 0 cases of the flu reported in South Carolina. The week before that, we had 2 cases of the flu. Can you maybe speak to why these numbers are incredibly low?
I don't have the medical background to give you the answer that you need there, but I certainly can do some research and get back with you. You know, that's a medical expert information flow, but we'll certainly do some work on that. And, you know, with the flu shot, we also encourage everyone to take the flu shot. And there may be more people taking the flu shot this year than in years past. And that could be having some things to hold the flu down. So, go ahead.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Avery, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a budget update from Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, in your packet, you'll see the budget. I just wanted to give council a little bit of heads up. I'm working now on finalizing the first draft. I sent you all some numbers just as a preamble, just to kind of take a look at. Those are some very rough numbers. Just in case you got some questions as I distributed those first drafts to the various departments. But I'm rapidly wrapping up the information for the first draft based on the most recent information that I've been able to get from the finance department. There's still some gaps coming due from the finance department, but we'll deal with those as we go through the budget. But I do want council to keep in mind, looks like maybe the 1st of March, I will be able to meet that goal and get a budget in your hands, probably present the first draft budget to you at that first meeting in March. And then after that, county council will need to start working on the budget. It always seems like no matter how soon we start, we're always scrambling at the very end to try to wrap things up. This year is going to be a little bit more contentious, a little bit more challenging for us because we will be getting that compensation study, and that's going to be very costly. Right now, in the first draft budget, I just put a number in there of $1 million. I don't know if it's going to be 1 million, 2 million, 500,000. I don't know what that number is, but I just put a number in there of $1 million for now. But in April, we expect to get those results, at least some of those results from that compensation study back. And we'll probably have to spend a lot of time working on the compensation study this year. So that's really all I want to do. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But be looking for that first draft budget to come later part of this month. We'll present it to county council. Definitely be ready the first meeting in March. Any questions, just let me know.
Anybody have any questions right now, Mr. King? All right, thanks, sir. We look forward to seeing you. All right, up next, we have Chuck Bobo, our code enforcement official, to give us a presentation. Chuck, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We have a slide tonight for our code enforcement that we've done around the county. Most of the cases we've done in the last few years, a couple of them are older because they were such large projects. Our theme is persistence. Without persistence and follow through, code enforcement doesn't happen. You've got to keep sending letters, keep making site visits, take them to court, go back to court over and over again. So without persistence and follow through, it just doesn't work. I'm proud to say that we've done that. Let's start on a tour of the county. This is just on the north end of the city, just outside the city limits. You'll see 7 circles. Those are buildings that we torn down or assisted tearing down. The first one is between P&T Hardware and Ford Elementary School. You see it caught on fire. It was a big mess. The owner tried to tear it down, but just didn't have the money. Wound up striking up a deal with Ford Elementary. We worked with Ford Elementary to get them to tear it down promptly. And they did. It's a nice clean lot now. You see on the edge of the slide, P&T Hardware. Here's a better shot of P&T. Been a little messy over the years. We started working with the owner a few years back, trying to get him to clean up, not necessarily tear down, but make it look better, clean up the lot, put a little paint on it. We went round and round with him. Finally, he decided to sell out to the school. And then we worked with the school. They weren't in a hurry to tear it down, but I was. So we kept after them until they tore it down. It took about a year after we started negotiating with the school. But that's the intersection there of 49 and 221. Let's see, it looks good. It's ready for the school to proceed with whatever project they want to. If you turn right on to 49, right there on the corner, there's a house right there also owned by P&T Hardware. This is after he retired. His children assisted us with this. They actually tore it down for us. They were great to work with. House just shortly down from there, 149. Same deal, old abandoned house. I'm standing in the parking lot of the Dollar General there on that corner. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you turn around and go back in time, this is what it looked like before Dollar General was there. There was an old remnants of foundations where the dirt is, and there's a house there, and then Mucho's, the old grocery store, is in the background. This is the same angle from the backside of Dollar General. Looks a whole lot better. On the front side is Mucho's from the 221 side. It got in real bad shape. Worked with owner. It's going to be tremendously expensive to tear it down. We went on for about a year. He said, please bear with me. I'm working with Dollar General, trying to strike up a deal. So when they bought it out, we worked with them, got them to do an asbestos study, cleaned it up, and there's a new Dollar General there. Next, let's go on down to Lucas Avenue, just short of there. You see the red circle. That's where the mill is at. Had a lot of debris in the lot, old equipment. We got them to clean that up. And I was standing there making some pictures, and I said, look at that smokestack. I mean, they're really beautiful. They're old engineering works of art. It'd be a shame to tear it down. You can see from the first slide, this congested area would be a great place for a park. If it ever becomes a park and it's sold, this is what you can do with it. This is the old Spartan Mill site on Magnolia Street, Spartanburg. They tore down the old mill, put in a commercial building. It's a park surrounding it. They got a placard on the old smokestack that gives the history of the site. And it's really beautiful. They lit it up with LEDs, and it looks really good on the moon at night. Next, we've got Highway 76 directly across from the hospital. I know it's been renamed several times, but to me, it's Lawrence County Hospital. The red circle is two structures that were there. As you came out of the entrance, you saw this, and that's not trick photography. It actually looked like that. Here's a raking shot that shows both structures, and you see they were in really bad shape, couldn't be saved. We got work with the owner, took about a year, finally commenced him. He tore down both of them, and when you come out of the hospital, this is what you see now. Next, let's go on out a little further east to Torrington Road out at the airport. You'll see the airport on the right there, and the red circle is a house on the corner. Caught on fire. It was in bad shape to start with. Fire department wanted us to come out and take a look at it, and we went ahead and immediately condemned it. We worked with the owner. Took a few months. We got him to tear it down, and it's a nice clean lot now. Next, we go north of town, up 221 to a little area called Aura. The red circle is Aura Community Club. The building down below it is the Sandy Springs Fire Department. John McClintock is the president of the Aura Community Club. I got to talking with him, and they wanted to tear it down and keep the property themselves. It's just too expensive, so I said, would you consider donating it to the county? And he said, let me go back and talk to them. They put it to a vote, and they granted it to us on the condition that we would build a recreational facility of some sort back there. So as you can see, it was in really bad shape. There's nothing you can do with that building except tear it down. Well, I talked with Andy Howard. It's working slow like me. All right, I talked with Andy Howard. He said he did have the funds. He had to get it approved. And now we've got a nice shiny park like that. Andy, all we can do is tear it down and Andy put it back together. So Andy said it's a nice park for the kids in the Aura community. Okay, the next slide. We're moving north Highway 14, beside the old Dollar General there at Gray Court. See the red circle there? That's the building we tore down. It looked pretty bad. It's valuable commercial property just outside of well, I believe it's still in the city limits of Gray Court. We walked with the owner. He agreed to tear it down, and you'll see it's a nice commercial spot ready to build. That's the old Dollar General in the background. They've since moved on down to the Walmart Express and taking it over. Nice facility. All right, let's go on up to Pleasant View Drive up above there on in the Gray Court area. See the red circle there? It's an old double wide, been abandoned for a number of years. Worked with the owner and he tore it down for us. It's a nice clean lot. Neighbors quit complaining. Next we have Liberty Church Road in Fountain Inn, a little more north up there. This was a dump site for a mobile home dealer from Greenville. There was over 100 homes there about 10, 15 years ago. We started enforcement around 13. Within a year, we got it down to that picture's about 80, 85 homes. Here's an aerial from 2019. We partnered with DHEC, started stepping up the enforcement, and we got it down to about 18, 20 homes there. Here's a slide made a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. That's a DHEC official there. It's down to some debris and 3 mobile homes. The owner is doing the asbestos study. They'll soon have that property clear. 25 acres and 100 something homes. Let's see. Now we're going to Moorteke Road, Mountain Road, Gray Court. Little circle, yeah, there it is, a little up from center. And this is what it was. This is an old mobile home caught on fire, had bad wiring. Low income family. We set a dumpster out there so they could tear the mobile home apart, put it in a dumpster. It's part of our mobile home disposal program. They cleaned it off. Unfortunately, they couldn't afford to build back. They're living in a tent now. We tried to find assistance for them. Madge Bird even went by, took them breakfast, but they didn't want to accept, I don't know, pride, whatever. But we try to help where we can, but sometimes it is difficult. Next, we'll go up to Main Street, Fountain Inn, across from D&W Fine Pack. This is one of the entrances to Fountain Inn. You see the little red circle above Fine Pack. We refer to it as the Snack Shack. Been several businesses over the years, been abandoned for a long time. We struggled with the owner for a year or so. It was difficult. That one had to come down at our expense. But after a year or so, we did get it down. Next, we'll go on up a little higher to Happy Valley Road in Fountain Inn. Had some complaints from all the houses around about this here. Abandoned house or old store. Became a local hangout, people eating lunch, trashing their kids, whatever. So we worked with the owner and he tore it down for us and he even put up a fence so they couldn't park there again. All right, next we'll go to Shady Grove Church Road. This is heading down south from town on 76, like you're going to Joanna, turn off on Hurricane Church Road. It's called Carolina Shaving Mill. As you can see from this aerial from 2014, tons of debris out there. Been there for years. We started working with the owner. Here's an aerial shot from 2020. The debris is gone, flattened out, hauled off. It caught on fire, and I had to go out there on Saturday with Joey Avery. And once those shavings catch on fire, you can't put them out. It's so deep, you just can't get to it. Fire department went out there over 7 times in 4 days. So I told the owner, I said, you've got to clear a path at least 100 feet around and get rid of the rest of this. We gave him about 6 months. This is the before photos. You see all those, there's mountains of it. This is on the backside where it caught on fire. The front, Here's the lower side, the old shavings, there's probably 2 or 3 acres of mounds like that. The neighbor's been cleaning a long time. This is the after shots. This is as you approach it. See, it's nice and clean. This is the lower end where he'd been there for years. It's all cleaned off. No more rats and all that good stuff. This is the backside where the fire was. You see, it's all gone. We got a little pile up there where they were processed up, saying that they were still operating at the time. Another shot from the lower front. Graded off nice and clean. And it looks nice now. But that was a project, took a while, and been on the going thing for several years. Next, let's go on down to Joanna to the mill. Where am I doing? Okay, we've got you can see there infrastructure all over the lot there. There's an entire mill on the lower end of the lot. This is in 2014. We started working on it in 2013. Here's what happened by 2020. All the infrastructure is gone except for 2 pretty large piles of debris. We're working with the owner. They are going to clean that up. This is what it looked like in 2016 from the side view on Ellis. Let's see, September of 16, January of 17, May of 17, November 17, November 17, January of 18, and finally December of 18. I just talked with the owner of the mill about a week ago. She's going to have the rest of that hauled off hopefully in the next few months. They have a little dispute with the contractor over salvage materials left there. As soon as they settle that, that'll be cleaned up, and we'll have Joanna Mill will be gone. Hopefully she'll build back some apartments or something nice there. Right beside it, where that circle is the old Joanna Clubhouse. You can see it's a little rough from the front. There's the side and the back. We work with Joanna Festival. They're the owners. They just didn't have the funds to fix it. Lawrence County Water and Sewer approached us, said it was built on top of a water main. They'd like to see it down. So we partnered with them, Better Coalition for Joanna, and the festival, Joanna Festival Committee. And between all of us, it became a feasible project that we could afford to tear down. And that's what it looks like now. It's cleared off and cleaned. Just a short distance down from the mill on Hampton Avenue, 2-story brick house. We had to do this at county expense, didn't get any cooperation. The sad part, I took this slide a little after that, several years, and you can see it's just turning back into woods. Across the street on Tillman, just a short distance from the mill. This is at one end, a house burned down. We had to do that at county expense. It's for sale cheap if you're interested, according to the sign. And this is a recent photograph. Nobody was interested, and it's turning back to woods. Middle of Tillman is this house. Tree fell through it. We couldn't get in contact with the owners, so we went through the legal process and tore it down. And you see, we need to find some way to generate more interest in Joanna, the residential areas. This house really gone. That's at the other end of Tillman. Again, turned into woods. Here's on Sumter, just down from Tillman. Already collapsed, been like that for a while. We had to tear that one down too. The owner wouldn't cooperate. And again, it's going back to woods. I talked with Joanna Festival. I said, if you can organize committees to, paint the houses before they get that bad, help a little old lady down the street. Just tearing down is not the answer. We got to find some way to revitalize Joanna, and I hope we can do that. Now let's move down to Cross Hill, 4711 Motor Street. That's behind the post office and the hardware store. This guy was doing a private scrapyard. We told him he couldn't do that. It wasn't a suitable location, didn't meet our ordinance. So he agreed and he cleaned it up. So now I'm mailing your letters down there. You don't have to look at that. A little further down, going toward the lake, you can see it's almost at the lake, across from Lee's Barbecue there. The old Saluda truck stop, also called the Silver Dollar. huge, 4,500 square feet. Even the interior walls were a solid block. We wrestled with the owner for over a year because it was so expensive. He finally found a contractor that would take it down reasonably. And there's a track over there. And there's coming out the 221 entrance onto 72. You see it's nice and clean now. It's much better on your way to the lake. Next, we're going down to Relax Street in the Waterloo area. We could spend a year or two down there. Really depressed area. This owner here, this wasn't one of the bigger jobs, but it's just such a difference. Look at that. And then after he cleaned it up, it looks good. And he'd been absent so long, he decided to go ahead and sell it and let somebody else enjoy it. Next, Sulphur Springs Road in the Waterloo area. Notice the slide there from 2014 where the circle is. Looks pretty neat, clean. Now look at 2020. All that rough, scruffy looking stuff is debris that he has actually brought in. Why, I'm not sure. There's old boats, water heaters, scrap lumber, ladders, barrels. There's probably an airplane buried in there. It's just, we've taken this guy to court, fined him hundreds of dollars. Last time he didn't even show up. We got a bench warrant out on him, and now we're waiting on the courts to open back up to see what our next one is. But that's our slideshow. Hope you enjoyed it. And please remember us in our budget. We really need another code enforcement officer, and we can do a lot more work. We're really swamped. Thank you very much.
Hold on just a second.
Oh yeah, you got any questions?
Before I start, anybody got any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Bubba,
Yes.
when a citizen sees this starting to happen, he can call you and y'all jump in on it.
Absolutely.
I go to mobile home, they're pretty much in my backyard.
That's right.
And he doesn't call those things in there and have to file up. Everybody knew what they could do about it. Then he went broke.
We like to take them by written complaint, but if they call by phone and it's visible from the road, I said, well, give me a good clear address. If they can give us a clear address, we just go out there and look at it and take care of it. Sure can.
I just want to thank you for having the same county that really is mess, for lack of a very better word. And we really do need to take some pride in some of the areas that are out there because they really do appreciate people home that are like us.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you really get that into some people here. But how well is the, I know when we instituted the mobile home thing, that's still going well.
Yes, ma'am, it sure is. We, last year when the courts were pretty much down, we spent almost all our $40,000 budget. We spent $35,000. The lion's share of that was on mobile home disposal. So it works very well. If you're not familiar with it, we have a program. We'll set the dumpsters. You tear it apart, you put it in there. We will haul the dumpsters off and take it to landfill, no charge. And if you know much about demolition, that is the lion's share of what the cost is. So it's a big service to the community, and it helps get rid of these older homes. A lot of them are pre-76 homes that were dangerous. It gives them an economical way to get rid of them. So,
Thank you.
no, thank you.
Can you walk us through the process of, Mr. Young touched on it, but, somebody sees a piece of property they want to report. What do they do? And once you get it, what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's based on if you live within 1,500 feet of a complaint, you're allowed to complain on it. You can call in by phone. We prefer a written complaint because a lot of times people are terrible at describing where it's at. And I say the blue house, third one down, you go in, there's several blue houses, they can't give an address. So we like to get it written. But once we receive it, we go out and verify that it is a code violation or ordinance violation. And then we take pictures, we write it up, send them a letter. They have 60 days to comply. If they don't do that, if they don't reach out to us, we take them to court and then we settle it there in court.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next we'll move into old business. First is Mr. Satterfield for approval for the architectural proposal on the evidence facility.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that the sheriff is here tonight, and I will tell you, the sheriff has forgotten more about law enforcement than I will ever know. And even given that, I can argue that one of the greatest need for Orange County is evidence storage facility and the proper maintenance of our evidence. In our capital project sales tax is a project for a new evidence storage center. So I come to you tonight to propose that we engage Newell to do the architectural design engineering of our new evidence center. Now, we hope that one day this new evidence center may become complete with a law enforcement center. So this study will be in two phases. Phase one will sort of at a high level design the entire law enforcement complex. Phase two will be designing and engineering for bid the evidence storage facility. Now, the reason we're doing it that way is because when the day comes that we do build the new law enforcement center, we want it to look as if it was one complete plan and that it all fits together and looks very nice. So with that, the proposal is for a total of $180,500, and I propose that for your acceptance.
All right, you've heard the proposal from Mr. Satterfield. I'll be willing to accept the motion, or if you have any direct questions,
If I may, Council, Mr. Chairman,
sure.
the money for this design will come from the capital sales tax. So we do have the option of moving ahead with phase one now at $9,500. And we could possibly fund that with our FILO special projects money and get started sooner than waiting on the funding to be available for phase two. That will allow us to proceed forward with phase one, just something for council to consider.
Are there any other questions? I have just one. Looking at the line items on the square footage sheet, there's a section for evidence technicians' offices, and then it lists different evidence storage. You got narcotics on here with 500 square feet. Are there going to be offices for those officers as well? But that's going to be a little different than your normal weapons and general evidence storage. Let me rephrase my question. Can you include offices for the narcotics officers if that's?
Yes, sir. Let me say that tomorrow, we're going to have a conference call with the architect, should you adopt this proposal. And we're going to have a discussion at length as to exactly the offices and what they need, because those guys know the protocols and the procedures and everything that they have to adhere to from a state regulatory standpoint. So we will make sure this building meets all of their needs for evidence storage, whether it be narcotics and maintaining the narcotics, cars, rifles, guns, all of that will be considered.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
John, you just mentioned a design and you taking in for the whole law enforcement. Okay, now that's not coming out of the funds for the one thing sales, that's gonna come from somewhere else. So what are you bringing before us right now?
So this proposal is for the evidence facility, but if you look at the proposal, there's a phase one and a phase two. Phase one is not $9,500. That would allow them to get started now. The money for phase two, we're not planning to have that money ready not until June-ish. So if we were able to fund the $9,500 with our own funds, then we could possibly start a little bit sooner with this phase one work, which phase one builds into phase two. It looks at things like what you're talking about in terms of the narcotics offices and whatnot.
I'd like to ask our county attorney real quick. Well, I'm probably as eager as the sheriff to get this thing rolling. Legality as far as being a capital project sales tax and intervening on the funds. Can we pay for that now? Where do we fall legally on this?
As far as the design of the evidence part, yes, you can proceed with that, because that will be reimbursable at the time that the capital project funding is done. If we need to make sure that we separate anything dealing with the whole complex. So, because that was not part of the capital project, it was the evidence thing. I understand the concept of the two pieces fit together, but if it's $9,500 and $5,000 of it is to design the complex, that would not be permissible under the capital project.
So just for verification, 9,500 is just for the evidence center.
That's to lay out the entire complex. The $9,500,
Lays out which complex.
the law enforcement.
The entire thing.
Yes,
And if we spend that today, that's gonna be reimbursed with capital. And it's
The part that is related to the evidence center can be reimbursed, not the whole thing. Because he's talking about $9,500 for the whole complex.
That answers your question.
Almost, but you're looking at a design that's gonna be for the complete law enforcement and all that is needed to build a complete one. Now, that's what the design's gonna be for the. And
That's
are you
correct.
gonna include anything else into that law enforcement building? Is anything else gonna be included in that?
that would include the sheriff's offices, law enforcement complex, the coroner's office, the coroner's evidence storage, and then the evidence storage for the sheriff's department.
Okay.
The entire complex. And the reason we want to do that is because when the day comes that we do build that full complex, we don't want the evidence center stuck out here and look like it was an afterthought.
I understand the ramifications of it.
Yeah.
And I guess, but I wanna make sure that we know what we are doing.
Right.
Because the design has nothing to do with the evidence, room. The design has something to do with the law enforcement building a facility that we want to create.
Okay.
And so we're gonna have to get those funds from another area until maybe you wanna reimburse something back, but I don't see the reason for reimbursing anything back. But the evidence room is gonna be a part of the facility. So, but I just want to make sure.
And let me say that this, he says in the proposal that this is for the new approximate 5,432 square foot facility that we designed at a very high level. I don't know how much plus or minus would affect his pricing, but just know that it could be that we come back and say, we need an extra $1,000. You know, I don't know, but well, no.
Could I suggest, and I think it would be doable, that the architects split out, surely they could break out the cost of the 9,500 as to 5,000 of it, for them, 3,000 of it for that. So I think they can do that, but we've got a clear path to stay within the boundaries of the capital project sales tax.
All right, are there any other questions? You have to accept the motion.
Move to approve.
Or we approve.
Approving proposal for $9,500 from the special projects fund to pay for the design of the full law enforcement center. And asking that the architects specifically draw out which part of it is for evidence, which part of it is for offices, so forth, so that we can have an opportunity to reimburse that later.
I'll second that.
Take it up, you second.
Yes,
All right, good. Motion by Mr. Tribble, second by Ms. Anderson. Are there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0.
okay, so let me be clear, I need to come back with you for phase two.
At this point, yes.
Okay.
Unless you can do it all for $9,500. Unless you can do it all for $9,500.
No, okay, gotcha. Thanks.
So I must have missed that too, so just point of clarification, the 171,000 or so was not yet awarded. We would like to enter into a contract, the 171,000 will be paid for by the capital sales tax. The 9,500, we would, fund that.
You're good on that number, now? You're confident in that number, it's not gonna change on you? That would be my concern. A preamble was under.
I can more confidently answer that after we have our conference call and discuss the needs for the sheriff.
I'm willing to make that motion unless you prefer to come back.
I'll come back.
Okay.
Let us nail down for sure what our needs are, okay? Thanks, sir.
All right. Next, we have approval of the capital project sales tax, Clinton Library Advisory Committee. I will call on-
Is Renita, are you here? There she is.
How are you this evening?
All right, actually surprised I didn't know I'd be talking. So, yeah, so I had a lot of people who are interested in joining the committee. I had a huge list of people at first, and I'm thankful for Mr. John to say, hey, and Mr. Patterson to say, hey, you need to shorten that list down. So right now we have Reverend Sarah Williams, Council Megan Welch, Vicky Vance, Jerry Treat, Kevin Suber, Council Garrett McDaniels, and Mrs. Vanessa Strong. So they're very excited about being a part of this. The community is excited. So I'm excited to, get started on this, to give Clinton what they've been wanting for a long time. And the staff is so excited also about getting a new library. And we're awesome. I just love the fact that it's already buzzing before we even got started. We had so many people who wanted to be a part of this committee, and we had to turn away people. So that's exciting to know that the community is excited about
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And and I've said before, we're glad you're with us and look forward to your leadership. I know it's a big project to be coming into a brand new job.
Right.
I know you'll do a good job.
Thank you.
All right, so y'all have heard the recommendation for the committee and have it in front of you. I would love to take a nomination motion for these names.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the committee for the new library in Clinton. That's one of those ones that they're at. But I'll leave it at that.
Second, motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Tribble. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That's 7-0. We look forward to what that committee brings to us. All right, next, we have approval of the capital project sales tax veteran memorial advisory committee. I'll call on Mr. Howard for this one.
Evening, Chairman, evening, council. I was asked to form a committee for the Veterans Park, and I've presented 5 names, and I believe there are 2 more to be added. And I have Ernie Seegers, James Buchanan, Matt Smith, Robert Sapp, George Thompson. All of those are veterans, including one that's actually active right now, from young and old. And I believe Mr. Brown has.
Yeah, we've had 2 more reach out to us, showing interest. One is Mr. Chuck Seaver. He is a retired warrant officer from the Marine Corps, and also Mr. Paul Vaughn, who is a retired colonel from the U.S. Army, I believe. If I get that wrong, I sincerely apologize. But hearing those 7 names, I would love to accept a motion to approve these recommendations.
I'd like to see someone on there from the Veteran of Foreign Wars. Well, really, we have a branch in Clinton, and I know it's also one in Lawrence also. And,
I'd be glad to, reach out to
I'm
anybody.
thinking about somebody if you are able to do that.
Sure, if you want to get a name to Ms. Walsh, I'll ask her to put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
That'd be good.
Please.
Okay. All right, well, we have, 7 names here, and we will take any more recommendations, now or later. Do I have approval, or do I have a motion to approve the ones that have been presented this evening?
So move to approve the names again.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDaniel, I heard second, first by Mr. Rankin. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you so much. 7, Ms. Walsh, you're supposed to give that name on the next.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right, I think you're up again, interstate sign.
I am. Again, thank you, council. I'm actually returning on something that you guys decided on sometime back. COVID kind of put us in a slow slump, working with the engineers. Anything you do on the interstate takes time, but we did have quite a few designs submitted for interstate entrance signs. And we took those signs, the Development Corporation helped us to put that out to poll with public opinion. And the overwhelming winner of that poll is the design that you have in your packet. It is E. It's an over 20-foot sign, and it will make a massive impact. These actually come in underneath the budget that you all allotted. I would like to recommend that additional funds be used to possibly put an entrance sign on 26 coming from Spartanburg, maybe a smaller sign. It won't be on the interstate, because it'll be on the interstate, but it won't have there's no exit there. So it'll be a smaller sign up on a hill. And also possibly on some of the other major highways coming into, not necessarily interstates, but major highways coming into the county. In the same sort of fashion, but nowhere near as large and grand. If this is approved tonight, we will move forward with the engineer to get permitting and through the Federal Highway Administration, and then it'll go to the state Department of Transportation. Once we get that approval back, then we will put out bids to get these signs done. And, at this point, we're really looking for approval for, I guess 2 things. One, to proceed, and the other for this sign that was chosen for you guys to, and any suggestions you might have to change.
So you recommend approval for sign E?
Sign E, the one that is first in your packet, I believe. It actually has a date on the side. It says.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
And again, there's a copy of that poll that was conducted. We appreciate the LCDC for and the chamber also for helping us do that poll. We asked the citizens, which one would you pick out of those signs, and sign E was the one that they picked.
So I have a motion to approve the request from the tourism director.
Motion to approve option E on the sign.
Motion by Mr. Rankin.
I like that amended.
Okay, I have a second by Mr. Johns.
I only amended because, Mr. Howard said with the additional funds that they would give a smaller one. You talking about?
Well, we allocated an X amount of dollars for this project. So all we're really approving is the design. The money's we've already approved the dollars. We're just approving the design tonight. You can put up 50.
I want to exceed the budget.
But he said a smaller one than this.
No, these will this size, but it'll be a similar sign to this for the other areas.
Okay.
In the county. Not to exceed the budget.
I didn't know that.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, sir. All right, next, we have a public hearing for ordinance 890, for ISO Coliseums. Time is 6:25. I will open the floor for public hearing. Anybody wishes to speak, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing at 6:26. Next, we have third reading of ordinance number 880 for ISO Polyfins. I'll recognize the county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many of you that have been on council for a while, certainly familiar with ISO Poly in the Red Court area. This is an expansion. Mr. Cole, where are you? You got the numbers on that as far as their.
Yeah, it's a $5 million.
$5 million. That company, gosh, this has probably been the third or fourth, maybe the fifth time that they have expanded up there. It just continues to grow. It's a very interesting company if you ever get a chance to tour it. But we would certainly urge final approval of the ordinance for ISO Poly, a really good industrial customer of Lawrence County for many years.
Thanks, sir. All righty, you have heard the recommendation from the county attorney. Do I have a motion to approve third and final reading of ordinance number 890 for ISO Poly?
Motion to approve on third reading, ordinance 890, ISO Poly.
Have a motion by Mr. Carroll. Second by Mr. McDaniel. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. That passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will move into new business. First up, we have an approval for the resolution of commendation. I will read it. This is a certificate of appreciation and community gratitude on behalf of the County of Lawrence, South Carolina. It is with deep pride that we, the Lawrence County Council, do hereby recognize the extreme honor Betty A. Neely. On her personal commitment of time and compassion, knowledge, and loyalty bestowed to the citizens of Lawrence County and to the office of Lawrence County Magistrate Courts. For her 25 years of dedicated service with Lawrence County Magistrate Courts from 1996 to 2021. From this day forward, her retirement will stand out forever as a milestone in her life as a job well done. We wish you the best and Godspeed with your future plans. With grateful appreciation on this 9th day of February 2021. So we would like to thank her for her years of service and wish her well. I don't think she's able to be with us this evening, but we will present this to her at a future date, assuming this approval tonight. So with that being said, I will take a motion to approve this resolution of commendation.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Carroll.
Second.
Second by Mr. McDaniel. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thanks so much. All right, next we will move into, make sure y'all sign that with Ms. Walsh, please. Next we'll move into report from the County Council Committee on Economic Development. I'll recognize the chairman of that committee, Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, and we're going to take each one of these individually. First item under D1 is approval of Hunter Industrial Park intergovernmental agreement. Where previously Hunter funds needed council as a whole approval, this establishes a committee comprised of council members from District 3, 4, 5. The mayor of Lawrence, or he is her designee, the chairman of the Commission of Public Works, and he is her designee, and the president and CEO of LCDP, who will be a non-voting ex officio member. To approve this committee will approve the funds for the purpose of economic development in the Hunter Industrial Park as outlined. It was unanimously approved to be suggested to council as a whole. That's it on part one.
All right. Coming as out of committee, it does not need a second. Is there any discussion on approving intergovernmental agreement governing the Hunter Industrial Park Fund? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Vote passes 7-0.
All right, item 2, the Connecticut Center Master Park Agreement is also unanimously voted upon. It's an intergovernmental agreement between Greenville County and Lawrence County, placing the Connecticut Center in a multi-county industrial park. Any questions or concerns here?
That is a motion coming from committee. Coming from committee does not need a second. Is there any discussion on that particular item? I believe that unanimously approved as well. There's no further discussion. I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Vote passes 7-0.
All right, part 3 is approval of Octagon 1, fee in lieu of tax allocations. As you can see outlined, the main part of this, it changes allocation percentages, where Lawrence County will be now entitled to 60% rather than 40%, increasing our revenue for the county general fund. This was voted 2-1 in committee. Any questions or concerns?
How will that impact the average citizen's tax bill?
It doesn't, as I'm not saying it does not, it just shift the percentage around when it comes to the county. There's not an increase, no increase in cost.
Right, it's taking the same economic development funds created under the umbrella of Octagon 1 multi-county industrial park and just reallocating those same funds. It has no impact on ad valorem or the regular tax rate.
And that, you said what,
40% to 60%, Lawrence County will now be entitled to.
and the other was going to the student.
School, yes, ma'am. It's item D.
I was wondering how we.
Mr. Chairman.
No.
So point of clarification is that it is different in the sense that we're taking money from that pot that was formerly allocated to the schools.
Sure, yeah, I guess for further clarification, when the money comes into Octagon 1 Park Fund, now it will be Lawrence County 60%, schools 30%, Lawrence County's Special Projects Fund 2.5%, Economic Development Reinvestment Fund 7.5%. That'll be the new allocation.
One final comment while I've got an opportunity, Mr. Chairman, is that I'm going to vote for this because we went through committee. I would like to see in the future all of the industrial parks have the same percentage, the same form of government. You know I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that the Sterilite Fund is different than the others, and I just think they ought to all be the same. I don't know that having different ones in there for different reasons holds water for me, but for the time being, I'm intending to vote for the motion.
And I would agree with you. I'd love to also see it minus the ones that are actually in Greenville County School District. That's a little bit different animal, but at least maybe get it down to 2. I agree with you.
And that is something, Mr. Cribble, that is in the works, and part of the process. So I think hopefully we can bring that back to council within the next couple of months. I would think, but that's a great suggestion. Something that's been needed for a long time. When we started this out in the 90s, you just kind of did them as you went along, and we had no idea we were going to have 48 of these. So we thought we might have 1 or 2. So now we're trying to get them all consolidated. That's a great suggestion. We're moving in that direction. Thank you. All right.
One final thought on that same subject is that, that basically we've gone from a system of funding the schools with industrial tax. And that, as we've done these FELOs, and it's become necessary for the county government to claim this one because we're limited as to what we can do otherwise. It was inevitable that would take place. I mean, you can do it to one, and the whole system has changed. Every new investment from then on out was the course was set. When we first started this, And so, I don't know quite what to think about that, other than that, we're all playing our own cards and there is intergovernmental rollover at every level all the time. It's just that we ought to be aware of it and be as good as teammates as we can be.
I agree. Ms. Andrews?
And that's basically what I was about to say, because in the past, it's also been an intergovernmental agreement, but we've always discussed with the school district, because the school district put this in their budget, the amount of money that they're receiving from the county, they put it into their budget. So usually we always discuss it before we decide to do it. We just don't do it and not discuss it with them. That's my thing.
All right. Are there any other discussion? All right, as the motion coming from committee, not needing a second, having discussion, I will now call for the vote for the approval of resolution 2021-19C. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 5, all those opposed? 1, abstentions? 1, all right, so that is 5 to 1 to 1, with Councilmember McDaniel in opposition and Councilwoman Anderson abstaining. All right, Mr. McDaniel.
Point 4, the first reading of mini ordinance 625. The main part of this is to, in a way, to incentivize the growth that we've been seeing, which can be attributed to Lawrence County Development Corporation. We're going to change their allocation from a flat rate of $360,000 to a 5% of net revenues, which will be distributed beginning next year, I believe it is. Yes.
We don't also change our internals, Mr. Chairman.
General fund.
The pro rata on the distribution of belows.
Main balance of the net revenue phase will be distributed to the general fund.
Correct. Okay. All right, thank you, sir. And for point of clarification, the 2 items being changed in this particular ordinance, which will require 3 readings and public hearing, is changing the allocations for the Lawrence County Development Corporation from $360 flat to 5% of net revenues, as well as amending the distribution of the general fund revenue to Lawrence County from the prorated current amounts to just a generic general fund revenue, which will allow council to distribute those funds to the appropriate funds as they see fit. So coming from the committee, it does not need a second. Is there any discussion on the first reading approval of ordinance 893?
First of all, I'm in favor of this, but is the 5%, is that standard for, what we see across the state?
I know it's.
That's generally when we have an independent organization like this, and of course they do recommend things to council, but and the 5% is not too far off of the actual amount they're receiving now, so it's kind of a wash.
I think if it goes to 5%, I think we're looking at an increase of roughly 100,000. Is that about
or
right?
less? Or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and that is dependent, Mr. Rankin, on the growth of industries. We've had probably 5 or 6 expansions announced within the last 18 months, which will go on the books probably starting this tax year. So that 5% could increase. It does, as the chairman said, it gives an incentive to the development corporation, to keep the motor running.
And I do like the idea of incentivizing that, so very in favor of that.
All right. Is there any other discussion? And I believe this particular one, Mr. McDaniel, came out of committee unanimously. Correct. All right, there's no other discussion. I'll call for the vote on first reading approval of ordinance number 893. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6, all those opposed? Those abstaining. The vote is 6 to 0 to 1. Councilwoman Anderson. All right, next we have first reading of ordinance 894, project rate. No, 893. Yes. It, or 893 will replace it.
Right.
Yes. All right, next is, ordinance, first reading of ordinance 894, project Gray. I'll recognize, Jonathan Coleman from LCDC to give us more information on that project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. Project Gray is an existing industry in the county, looking at an expansion project of almost $50 million and 39 new jobs.
Awesome.
And hopefully, I think at the next reading, they want to make their corporate PR people want to make a public announcement in time or in line with the second reading. So instead of doing that on third reading like normal, we'll probably do it at the second. Their company name will be in the second reading rather than third, because they're a European company and they want to announce it on the stock exchange that they're part of and all that good stuff.
Wonderful. All right.
I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Coleman? All right, if not, I entertain a motion for ordinance 894, first reading by title only.
Mr. Chairman, I move for first reading approval of 894 by title only.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Anderson. Second by Mr. Rankin. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. All right, next, it reads approval for library board appointments. What we actually have is we have a resignation from 2 appointees. And Ms. Walsh, you haven't given official resignations yet. Okay, if we can secure those, that would help. But Dr. John Womack and Miss Sandra Power has chosen to resign their seats on the library board. Ms. Power is Mr. McDaniel's appointee. So she would start, or whoever he chooses to replace will start a 4-year term. Dr. Womack was actually my appointee, and it was halfway through the 2-year term. I'm not yet prepared this evening to make a recommendation for that board. I'd like a little more time to decide. Mr. McDaniel, are you ready to make a recommendation?
I'm not prepared to make it.
Okay, so we will, do we need a motion to accept the resignation, Sandy? Oh, okay, so we will just take this for information then, as a resignation from Dr. Womack and Ms. Sandra Power. And here in the near future, you will see a recommendation from Mr. McDaniel and myself to replace those 2 seats. Well, they make suggestions that this particular board is a district.
I know it's what I do, but I just want to know who is she and who.
Well, I'll be inquiring. I'm sure Mr. McDaniel inquires to his person too, and we'll go from there. All right, that is all we have on the agenda. Next up is public comments. We have one sign up, John Reichert from Princeton.
Brought me some visual aid. These are actual books that I used at Clemson University in 1980 when Clemson won their first national championship, where I studied economics and physics. And they encouraged me. I pulled them out of the attic where I was getting down my wife's Christmas ornaments. And I found them there, and I said, well, I need to get those down and get them cleaned up. But I saw them sitting there, and they helped me to visualize what I see as a need right now that during the budget development time. And so I wanted to speak to you if I could. These 2 topics really represent how I see the county council addressing what I see as a real need, and I'm hoping to encourage you to make decisions to address severe issues in Lawrence County associated with our sheriff's department. I think they have 3 areas that they need budget increases, and of course I know they all know that our deputies and the personnel need, and I'm encouraging to look at a 15% increase for personnel in the department. I think that the Sheriff's Department also needs a 15% increase in the number of personnel, number of deputies. It needs to increase by 15%. I'm gonna keep saying 15% because I think it's warranted with the size of the need Lawrence County has. Lawrence County sticks up between Greenville and Spartanburg County. There's a lot of crossover county line. I got one story I heard just yesterday from a member of Hickory Tavern area, who's a member of Friendship Presbyterian Church. Just in the past few days, there was a individual who was living in a house on Neely Ferry Road, just a mile or so from Hickory Tavern School. And that house was owned by a family in Belton. And the people living in it were from Belton, this individual was. And he chose to, during the lunch hour, when the pastor had left for lunch, to come in through the back window of the Friendship Presbyterian Church. And he went through and set down his crowbar and sheathed samurai sword in the vestibule, and then went back through the church to the hallway down to the offices where he met the church secretary. She had raised 3 boys, so she related with him quickly and went to get him, offered him a glass of water, and went to get the water, called the pastor who was at lunch. He was just finishing lunch. He called the deputy, sheriff's department, and the deputy got there before the pastor got back. So I want to give kudos to the sheriff's department for showing up so quick. And but in the broad daylight, in the middle of the day, this individual chose to go in to burglarize Friendship Presbyterian Church. But the reason I bring it up is because of that crossover from county lines and the needs that we have in our sheriff's department to be able to address the severe problems that we face. I think there are certain directives that are been on the back burner for the sheriff's department that address issues such as this, and mental illness education and individuals who focus specifically on mental illness and how it affects or leads to crime in our county needs to be, I think these directives need a 15% increase also. The motivation that I have for speaking there is specific to the times that we live in. You have new executive orders coming out of federal government that's going to be allowing our borders to be more invaded upon, and those things are going to lead to, I believe, the increase in crime associated with gang activities in the upstate of South Carolina because of the major thoroughfare of 85. So having our sheriff's department up to speed and level in communications with other sheriff's departments in the upstates is going to be necessary. These people come in and they migrate to rural areas in order to be able to go into metropolitan areas and be aggressive. And so we need to capitalize on being ready for that, I think. We just need our sheriff's departments to be, need to be supported to become as effective as the departments around us. I heard just today on the radio that this January, this past month, was 75% increase in gun purchases across the United States over January last year. 75% increase in purchase. That gives you an idea of the temperament that people are feeling about this particular atmosphere that we're living in today's time. And so that's one reason I wanted to step up and say something. about getting our sheriff's department a 15% increase in their budget this year. And so, thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you speaking on, especially on behalf of the sheriff. I know I haven't been shy about my support of the sheriff's department. I'm constantly amazed at what they do with so little. And I know the sheriff gets frustrated often over what he has to deal with, and I'm thankful that we have the sheriff that we have and that he stretches every dollar that he has. But I will definitely be taking into consideration your recommendations as we enter into the budget session. Next, we will move into county council comments. I will start with Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Allenberger, for speaking tonight. I encourage more people to address the council, get involved with the local community, speak to us on whatever's on your minds, issues that you have, and issues you want us to address as a county council. I've definitely made it a priority to meet the needs of people of my community and the people I represent. I do want to thank you for your comments, and my support for the sheriff's office is also very strong. I'm working with the department to see how we can meet some of those needs this budget year. We can't guarantee, obviously, anything, but I'm working very hard, and hopefully we will find solutions to the issues that the department faces. I definitely want to see that happen by the end of my term and have the sheriff's department where they need to be. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm recently off of a campaign, and that seems logical to me to continue to talk about things on council that we talked about during the campaign. It seems like a bad trend to sort of forget them at that point. Two of those things I'd like to bring up tonight, and you'll hear me talking about them in the future. One of them might be easier than the other, although both might be difficult. First one is the trail between Clinton and Lawrence. You know, that we've been working with Andy Howard, with Bud Marchand and others to try to make that trail work. I really have a vision for being able to get on my bicycle at my house and ride all the way to Roma's, or have a cup of coffee on the square and turn around and ride back. You know, I have to admit that I do that in Greenville, ride up Travelers Rest for a weekend and have pay something to somebody on both ends of that trip. My wife and I visited Easley over the weekend and found the head of the Dougal Trail, 8 miles up to Pickens. Yeah, Pickens. I kept wanting to say Pickens. And that the parking lot was full, you know, with people with bike racks and everything. The parking lot was completely full on a Sunday afternoon, where people had come and put on that 8-mile track and gone up and come back. And it's a blast. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. You know, it's about 2 hours worth of riding if you ride at a slow pace, and it's a great exercise, and it brings the two communities together. I'm reminded of when I first went into business in Clinton. It was long distance to call from Clinton to Lawrence. There was no interaction between the two towns at all. I mean, it was like a different time zone or something. And that we've come a long way since then. And this trail would be a big, big deal. And I have a vision for what would happen in the terminus in Clinton, should that be able to happen. Now, we're going to formulate these ideas, and they're going to involve right-of-ways, and they're going to involve some money at some point. I went to Travelers Rest about 6 months ago, and I took 11 pictures of restaurants in Travelers Rest. Travelers Rest is a stop-off point between somewhere and nowhere. I mean, and it's become a place, you know. I'm envious of them, you know, and that I don't like to be envious of things that I used to think I was better than. And I don't like to have that illusion changed in that way. Second item that is longer term than that is that Brian and I attended our first sort of inaugural session with the LCDC with Jonathan Coleman. And they gave us a graphic, and it had 3 interstates. You know, it had the interstate to Columbia, and it really goes to Charleston. You have to skip through Columbia just to get to Charleston. And then you go to Greenville and Spartanburg from there. And I want that to have another X on it. And one of them was 72, 4 lanes going to Greenwood. And I want to see that 4 lane going to Chester. you know, that I've told many of you that the first meeting I went to as a city council member in 1979, Leon Gilbert, who was the dad of Dale Gilbert, the weatherman, came by my house, picked me up, took me to Greenwood to a meeting about the widening of 72. This was in 1979. And that the vision was to have it go all the way from Lancaster all the way to Atlanta, you know, all the way through Athens and so forth. If you've been to a Georgia event lately at the University of Georgia at Athens, they're about to get that last section complete. And it's taken 30, 40 years for that to happen, you know, but the fact is it may take a long time for it to happen, but we need to be oriented in that direction. And the final thought on that point, Mr. Chairman, is that I attended the South Carolina Department of Commerce School for Economic Development as a private citizen. And that we went to Spartanburg for one of those weekend events and spent 2 days up there. And there were distribution centers all over Spartanburg. And I thought I knew sort of what was going on up there. I go through it enough to sort of keep up with what's going on up there. But these are in industrial parks that are not right on the interstate. And there were distribution centers coming out your ear. Well, what better place to distribute to the state of South Carolina than a 5-point star in Clinton, where you're distributing and not having to deal with I-85, and you've still got the same access to it all the way around. We even have PL Developments in Clinton going to I-85 for their distribution center, rather than somebody from I-85 coming to Clinton for their distribution center. I mean, after all, that's where Milton's distribution center is. That's where Walmart's distribution center is. So it's not like that's a far-sighted kind of thing. And I want to have that same vision for Clinton. We've gotten the property donated from Witten Center that opens up that interstate property now, and there are good things to come, and that there'll be ideas on those ideas coming forward. But I want to place those ideas in your mind, and I want you to have the same vision of people coming into the square in Lawrence and coming into downtown Clinton and seeing that 5-point star as opposed to a 3-legged stool. I want you to have the same vision for that I do, and I'd love it if you would join me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Cribble. Mr. Yance.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Bobo cleaning up his county. A lot of those places that he mentioned, I was familiar with, and I'm glad I know what direction I can tell the citizens to take and make see something start. Instead of just letting it fester up. So, hats off. And,
Ms. McDaniel.
No comment tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson.
In your comments, did you mention about CF investments?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. Well,
I'll let you take that.
No, you can comment on that. I thought you was,
I mean, I will, but if you want to go ahead, you're welcome to.
I want to make sure you included it, because when you were talking, I said, well, here's CF, and I want to make sure they know that we appreciate the investment that they are putting back into Lawrence County. It was a sizable one. And I am still having some issues, hoping that everybody is working toward the coronavirus. And I was happy when I've had my second shot, so I feel good about it. And I want some of the other citizens to feel good about going to get their first one and their second. And I would like to see us making sure that we are out there trying to push that they should go and get their vaccination, as well as following up with the mask, the hand washing, the hand touching, and the sanitizing. We need to do all of that to try to curb this virus, and I want to see us all working together. And I know it's a lot of seniors out there who do not have a way to get to where they need to get to, and they really also cannot get online to make their appointments. So I'm putting my name out there. So if anybody would like to get to an appointment or need some help or assistance to make sure that you can try to get an appointment, you can give me a call. Because I think we really need to be working on that as a whole. And I don't want to see anybody left out. I respect your choice if you have a choice that you do not want to do that. But for those people who want a way to do it, I'm here to help them. I'm available.
Thank you, Ms. Ashton. Mr. Carroll. All right. Well, Ms. Anderson brought it up, but I will also mention it. I had it on my list, I promise. ZF made an announcement, surprising to most of us, honestly, earlier this week, I believe on, I guess it was last week now, on Wednesday. They are doing a $200 million capital investment and adding 500 jobs to their plant in Gray Court. Those numbers are fantastic. More jobs for the citizens of Orange. You know, we talked about one tonight that was 41 and another that was 34, and those are good. But when we get these larger, in the several hundreds and even into the thousands of employment investment, that's a big deal for Lawrence County, and I hope we continue to see more and more of that. I already expressed my gratitude for Sheriff's Department. I'm a full supporter of the Sheriff's Department, all that they do, and hope that we can bring them to where they deserve to be as we proceed through this budget session. Talking about the trail, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Tribble. A couple weekends ago, Mr. Howard, along with a bunch of PC students and the Lawrence County Trail Association, began clearing, or finished really clearing the loop, 2-mile loop that's out by the hospital. It was great to see all the young kids. I'm sure most of y'all probably saw that happen, or the article in the paper. But I want to say thank you to Andy. Andy's a big driver on that trail. He makes a lot happen that people don't know about, and he'll be a big piece to the puzzle moving forward. And I do agree. I'd love to see something unite the two cities in our county. For years, there's been a division, and I think that trail will be one good sign of connection. So thank you for bringing that up. That's all I have this evening.
I know what, Mr. Butterfield, I think that's his head, but I don't know for sure.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about the vaccine clinic. Justin Benfield,
He's here.
CEO of Prisma Lawrence Hospital, is here this evening. They have set up, if you're not already aware, a vaccine clinic at the Ridge. The mayor's here as well. Thank you for joining us tonight, Mayor. They've allowed use of that facility for our citizens of this county. I believe there's also some other resources that help people register. You do have to have an appointment. You cannot just show up. That I think is one thing they ran into out there. But as long as you have an appointment, I know their original goal was vaccinate 1,200 people a week. So if you've done your homework research and decide that's what you want to do, I recommend you reach out on the MyChart and set you up an appointment and go get your vaccine. We are grateful to have Prisma in this county and Justin's leadership and cooperation from the city to allow that to happen. I know Joey's been a resource in getting some of the behind the scenes set up too. And Joey, we thank you for all you do on that side of things. That is all I have for my comments this evening. We will now consider moving into executive session. There are 4 items proposed. Legal briefing on the capital project sales tax, legal briefing on the delinquent tax sale redemptions, contractual matter relating to EMS, and an employment matter relating to E911. Do I have a motion to move into executive session to address these 4 items?
Motion to move into executive session for the 4 stated items.
Motion by Mr. McDaniel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rankin. All those in favor of moving into executive session for the 4 items stated, please raise your right hand. 7-0. The time is 7:02. We will convene an executive session at 7:10. For those of you who need to come in now, we'll call you. This first one will be Mr. Cruikshanks and Mr. King.
Come straight to work.
Well, it's gonna be kind of late. You already do. Oh, okay. Thank you, Gary. Okay.
Time is now 8:41. Council will reconvene in open session. Executive session is held to discuss legal briefing, capital project sales tax, legal briefing, linked to tax sale redemptions, contractual matter relating to EMS, and an employment matter relating to E911 department. No action was taken in executive session, but I will now entertain any motion from council members.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to allow the county attorney to continue negotiation and litigation process for the capital project sales tax.
You've heard the motion by Mr. McDaniel, second by Ms. Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Is there any other motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to allow our county administrator to evaluate and consider an MOU related to EMS response assets.
You've heard the motion by Mr. Carroll. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McDaniel. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. All right, given that there is no further business, I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. So motion by Mr. McDaniel, second by Mr. Rankin. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand. 7-0.
I'm gonna give that stuff.